I probably do need an introduction. I'm old. There's a lot of people here. If you've been involved with Agile development for a long time, you probably have heard of me because I've been involved for a very long time also. But if you're new to this stuff, I'm here because I'm old. I'm here because I got a very early start in Agile development. I've been in software development for a decade before that. I started working at a small company in 2000 that was using a process called extreme programming. And in 2001, while I was there, I learned that I was now using an Agile process. The term Agile was coined in 2001. So that kind of makes me OG, I guess, because I was there at the beginning. I was at the very first early conferences, and I was one of the few hundred people practicing Agile development in the early days. So I've seen it grow up, and like most processes, become interesting and become a bit of a fad, and now it's become a bit of a racket. In the 90s, we were all trying to do some variations of waterfall and be deliberate about it, and it sucked and it didn't work. And now it's 2024. We're all doing Agile development. Kind of sucks and doesn't work, and probably everybody's noticed by now that the only common factor is us. All this stuff is hard. Now, when I started with Agile development in 2020, at that very first company, my job title was product manager. So I've always looked at Agile development from a product perspective. And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. Now, anybody here an engineer? Out of curiosity? Well, very few, but there's a few. Everybody, who's heard of the term DevOps before? Okay, good, that's everybody. I want to talk about, Agile development and DevOps, and, well, what's wrong here? Agile and DevOps practice doesn't really focus on value, and I want to talk about where value really comes from and why it's so hard to get, and the fact that if you're going to really focus on value, you need to start to get good at being wrong a lot. Let's talk about Agile for a minute. Most people here know that Agile development is not a specific process. Yes, there's a lot of language we use and there's a lot of specific process, but Agile is a set of values and principles. In fact, who here has read the Agile Manifesto before? If you haven't, you should. Okay, you all know this stuff. And when you look in the Agile Manifesto, there's a lot of focus on working software. One of the core values is that working software over comprehensive documentation. And yes, a lot of focus on working with teams and collaborating and doing well together and responding to change, things like that. If you dig into Agile principles, you're going to see principles that focus on, our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software, and working software is the primary measure of progress. We're focusing a lot on working software. This is what you get out of Agile development, this emphasis on collaboration and feedback and continuous improvement and delivery of working software. That's great. DevOps compounds that. For people unfamiliar with DevOps, in the early 2000s, I worked for, in the 1990s and early 2000s, I worked for a software company that is now called Salesforce Commerce Cloud. They were acquired by Salesforce a while back, so the people I used to work with worked there. I left and worked at a consultancy called ThoughtWorks. Anybody heard of that company at all? Just out of curiosity. But these were co-workers of mine back then. Jez Humble and Dave Farley. A lot of the work we did in early days of ThoughtWorks is what's resulted and we used to do continuous integration, and that became continuous delivery. And that became the heart of what we call DevOps practice today. Now, there's a book out there called Accelerate. Accelerate kind of upped DevOps game a bit and talked about this correlation between strong DevOps practice and successful companies. Part of what DevOps talks about are a set of metrics that helps us really measure if we're doing this stuff well. Has anybody heard of something called DORA metrics before? Okay, anybody use DORA metrics in their organization? Okay, just a couple, but we aspire to doing this stuff. Look, DORA stands for the DevOps Research and Assessment. DORA doesn't stand for anything, and DORA is not an explorer. But DevOps metrics, there's just 4 of them. Cycle time, how long does it take us to ship something? deployment frequency, how often do we ship things, what's our failure rate, and what's our recovery rate. So ship more, ship faster, recover faster when things go wrong. And this is Nicole, and I'm going to let her talk for a second. She's going to explain why this is going to help you make more money.
Also, DevOps is good for organizations. So here's what we find. High performers, year over year, are twice as likely to achieve or exceed their commercial goals. Again, profitability, productivity, and market share. I like money. Any organizations, anyone here works for an organization that likes money, profit-driven? Right? So this speaks to us. But it's interesting, after a few years, some people came back to us and they said, I work for a not-for-profit, I work for government, I work for some educational institutions, or I work for a for-profit institution that has broader goals. We also care about other things. Other things matter to us. What about non-commercial goals, even if I'm in the for-profit sector? So in the 2017 study, we added additional measures like non-commercial goals. And the crazy thing is we find the same 2x multiplier. High-performing organizations are twice as likely to achieve or exceed non-commercial goals. Effectiveness, efficiency, customer satisfaction. By the way, the measures for these are drawn from the academic literature. Highly, highly rigorous measures. Okay, for bonus points, in the 2014 study, we had a large enough data set that I could actually pull from stock market data. And we find that high performers had a 50% higher market cap growth over the previous 3 years. So this is great, okay? The ability to develop and deliver software, technology is driving organizational performance.
So it seems pretty clear now that if we're using an Agile process, we're going to focus on delivery. If we use DevOps practice, we're going to deliver more and faster using good technology. So this is the basic model that's in my head. I should put Agile and DevOps there. Something magic happens, and we get money. Now, I've seen this model before, and some of you might have also. I'm going to play a short video here. This is 20 years old. Let me just let the video speak for itself. This is South Park.
Anybody know anything about corporations? I think my mom is a corporation. Yeah, that makes sense. You guys! Well, how about we just say corporate should be stopped? How do we stretch that into 5 minutes? You're taking my underpants! Will you stop with the underpants, Gnome Streak? We have to work here. What the hell? Well, I be damned. That's my last pair of underpants! Shh, don't scare him. Hey there, little guy. Bad. Cartman? Why? Why do you always have to hit stuff with a stick? Well, look at him. He's out, look at him. Dude, why are you taking Tweak's underpants? Yeah, look what you're doing to this poor kid.
Stealing underpants, big business.
Business? Wait, do you know anything about business?
Sure, that's what gnomes do.
Show us.
Okay, follow me. Not much longer now. Follow me. This is where all our work is done.
So what are you going to do with all these underpants that you steal?
Collecting underpants is just phase 1. Phase 1, collect underpants.
So what's phase 2?
Hey, what's phase 2? Phase 1, we collect underpants. Yeah, but what about phase 2? Well, phase 3 is profit. Get it?
I don't get it.
You see, phase 1, collect underpants. Phase 2, phase 3, profit.
I get it. No, you don't. Do you guys know anything about corporations?
You bet we do. Us gnomes are geniuses at corporations.
So I want to unpack this a little bit. When I'm looking at a lot of organizations adopting Agile and good DevOps practice, I see a lot of collect underpants faster sorts of initiatives. So let's talk about value for a minute and talk about where value really comes from. Look, I'm going to switch over to the way I usually do these things, and I need a little bit of audience participation here. Look, think of a product you love, something you use routinely, something you would tell other people to use. You can think of even a feature, capability in it that you lean on, And let me ask you, if you were to tell somebody about it, what makes it valuable to you? Well, that's it. What makes a product valuable to you? Scream out anything. Say it again. Easy to use, and sorry, I heard some other stuff there. Save time, convenience. It solves a problem. Creates revenue for you. Yeah, inexpensive. So it's funny, we want it to be inexpensive, but companies that build it wanted to create revenue, and this is sort of an important piece of tension here we'll come back to. What else? Say in there? Availability, and what else out there? Creates demand, creates pleasure. You're starting to see some of the tension here. Again, you wouldn't tell your mom, hey, Mom, you should use this product because it creates demand, but creates pleasure. Yeah, that's why your mom plays Candy Crush. So things like that. Again, what matters to us isn't what matters to our organization usually. Anything else? Yeah, I got that solves a problem thing in my crappy handwriting, if you can read. Intrinsically intuitive and saves time. Is that what I heard out there? Let me get the intuitive and saves time. Say that again. It changes for the better over time. Yeah, not just solves a problem, it solves my problem. And what else did I hear over here? I thought it. Me too. Yeah, sorry. Doesn't matter. You got it. So look, you can see there's stuff that matters to us that creates revenue and creates demand. That matters to your organization. Anything else that, again, if your organization makes products or sells them and you say this is one of our best or most valuable products, what makes it valuable? Things like creates revenue and creates demand. Anything else from your company's perspective? I heard competitive over there. Yeah, competitive, and I heard helps people. Oh, connects people. People, scalable, and you said the brand. What about the brand? It builds brand. Got it. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Let me point out there's a few things going on here. Let's unpack this because these are sources of value. Now, I want to point out that nobody said finished on time or finished under budget, or stakeholders love it, or releases faster than other products, although there is changes for the better over time, which implies that at least it changes. That's it. Now, you are here presumably because it is your job to take ideas, that's supposed to be a light bulb, to take ideas and turn them into products or things you can ship. Now, those ideas could be for whole new products, but most of us are probably here because we work on software. How many of you work on software for a living? Any of you work on hardware or other things like that? So look, software products are different than traditional products. Traditional products improve themselves using an obsolescence model. If you don't like your car or computer or vacuum cleaner, you can get rid of it and replace it with a new version, a better one. But you don't get rid of your Spotify and replace it with new Spotify. There's no new version of Microsoft Office. There's no new version of Netflix. Rather, those products or software products continuously improve themselves by adding additional features and capabilities. And chances are, some of you may be working for a startup that's creating a new product, or you may be creating a new product in your company, but most of us are probably adding features or capabilities to products our companies already have. Now, those are the things in traditional software we start referring to as our requirements. And if you work for an organization that builds these things, they are going to ask you how much time is it going to take you to take my idea and turn it into something you can ship. Your organization will worry about the cost. Cost in software is measured in people, or how many people over how much time is it going to take. And you know all this stuff is called scope. And you are probably well aware of this time, cost, scope triangle. And everybody's well aware that this is the bad news triangle. And look, there's no good news here. The traditional wisdom tells us you only get two of these. So if you fix time and cost, the bad news is scope goes down. Fix time and scope, bad news is cost goes up. Insist on fixing time, cost, and scope, and you find out the triangle actually has 4 points. The fourth point is quality. You fix time, cost, and scope, and quality squeezes out. That's the way this works. But oddly, this is not what matters. What matters is what is up to your customers and users. It's up to what they do and how they feel about it, and then ultimately what they say about it. And look, these are the kinds of things that they say about it. Now, look, if you release a new product, feature, capability, what we hope happens is that people will see it and they will choose to try it. We hope that they actually use it for its intended use, and ideally we hope that they keep using it, because if they keep using it, that's how we make money ultimately. I'll go more into that. And then we hope that they say good things about it, say good things to other people about it. Now, there's a lot of products where users don't have a choice. They must use it and keep using it. Does anybody use Jira where they work? Out of curiosity, could any of you go back into work next Monday and say, I've had it with Jira, I'm never opening this app again? Can anybody do that? One of you. Is there any more? A couple of you. So that means you're a user, you're not a chooser. That's the difference. You're a user but not a customer. Customers are the choosers, and for business-to-business products or products we build for our own internal use, users and choosers are often different. You have to use it to keep your job. They cannot make you say good things, but where you have to use something, the doing that matters, well, we measure things like efficiency and effectiveness. Efficiency meaning you get more work done faster. Effectiveness meaning you do better work, you make fewer mistakes, things like that. Now, if you ship a new feature, capability, or a new product, and one person sees, tries, uses it, keeps using it, and says good things, that's just interesting. Products are leveraged investments. We need lots of people to do it before you start to feel it in your organization. Now, your organization has a different responsibility. It must sustain itself. And it does not sustain itself with happy people. It sustains itself with cash. And if lots of people see, try, use, and keep using it, and somewhere along their pay, they might pay by buying it initially, they might pay monthly or annually, they might pay with their eyeballs if you're making advertising revenue, things like that. If lots of people use and keep using it, that's where we see increases in revenue. Now, if we build things for internal use and our employees are more efficient and more effective, they do better work, they might help us increase our revenue. And if they're more efficient, that might help us lower our costs. And all of that adds up to return on investment. If lots of people say good things, that helps our brand and brand awareness, or helps build brand, as somebody here said. If people are saying good things about our product and we launch new products and it's easy to sell those products, that helps our position in the market or our market share. Those kinds of things. Now, I want to do this because I want you to see here that what matters to your organization, how much time and money it takes to build things, and how much money we're making, those are the things in the blue here. But what makes any of this possible is this stuff in between. Products are a value exchange. We spend money building something. Our customers and users turn that money into more money that supports our organization. And we can call this kind of stuff is what helps your organization. We can call all this stuff on the right side value, but just be clear that what's valuable to your customers is not the same thing that's valuable to your organization. Your customers do not care about your return on investment, brand, or market share. That's not their concern, that's yours. So value means two different things here. Now, if I work this model backwards, I'm sure a lot of you, if you've ever seen me talk, have seen me draw this model, but it's important that we get it into evidence before we move forward with the important stuff I got to talk about. Look, this model does not start with ideas, although most Agile processes seem to start with backlogs and the ideas. We actually have to work backwards, take a look at those customers and users, and what we look for are problems that we can solve. Everybody will say, look, it does have to solve a problem. Or we look for, I'm going to write down here, unmet needs. Let's face it, a lot of products are super successful, but they do not solve problems. Games don't solve problems. Netflix doesn't solve a problem. Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat don't solve problems. Arguably, they create problems. But we are all wired with needs to socialize, to feel popular, important, connect with other people, play, have fun. And if we can find those needs and exploit them with an idea, a product or a feature, that's how we can start this value exchange thing. And then if I work all the way backwards to your organization, remember, your organization needs to sustain itself. How many of you work for a for-profit organization? How many of you work for an organization where it's okay if you just sustain yourself? Yeah, nobody. Every organization wants to grow. So sustaining yourself, I promise you, if you have quarter-over-quarter financial projections, it doesn't show you're just staying the same size. It shows you're growing. And people in the organization that are responsible for the organization sustaining itself and growing, I am going to call those people business stakeholders. And they worry a lot about that. Hopefully they've got some sort of vision for where your company is years from now and some sort of strategy for how it's going to get there quarter by quarter. And if your business isn't sustaining itself, isn't growing, it isn't moving towards its vision, its strategy is not working, this results in a business problem. Now, a business problem is not the same thing as a customer's problem. Your customers aren't worried about whether you're meeting your growth targets or whether your strategy is working or not. Those aren't the things keeping them up at night. So your organization, yep, is definitely going to worry about this thing. But here's the other quirk, is that organizations cannot directly solve their own problems. If your organization wants to grow or reduce operating expenses, it then needs to find a customer user, internal or external, that has a problem or unmet need, build something that solves that problem. Those customers have to see, try, use, keep using, and say good things about those things in order to turn that investment into more money that sustains your organization. That's how products work. And again, this is where value comes from. Now, people have probably seen me draw this model before. It's in the beginning of the story mapping book, but I'm going to label it sharply here. It's everything between this idea and the delivery. That is output. That's what we build, and that's what good Agile practice focuses on getting more of faster. That's what good DevOps practice is getting more of faster. But anybody who's doing this starts to realize that the faster you build crap, the more crap you get. Because what matters is what happens when things come out. The word for that is outcome because of that. And outcome is not measured in how much you build or how fast you build. Outcome is measured in how many people use it. Measuring outcome is easy. You ship something, you measure if people used it. If they didn't use it, that's bad. If they must use it, if they weren't more efficient and more effective, that's bad. And that results, not only does it result in no value, it results in negative value. Or how many of you have worked on building something that actually hurt customers and users before? That actually resulted in not just the absence of value, but negative ROI. Now, again, if we get some people use the word outcome for all of this out here, but I want to draw a distinction between the value customers and users get and the impact your organization gets as a consequence of that. So this language system of output, outcome, and impact I've been using for a long time. Look, I can refer to these as business problems or business needs. And we refer to these problems and unmet needs as opportunities. Now, let's see. Look, that's how this model works. Our business has its own set of needs. If it needs to find opportunities to exploit, it needs to build things, products or services or other things. It needs to pay attention to the outcomes or the value that people get from that, because that is the leading indicator to business impact, the return on investment. If people aren't using what you build, chances are it is not going to give you return on investment. Now, this is what we just talked about in the underpants gnome scheme. It's just that the underpants refer to this as phase 1 and this as phase 3. And so it's phase 2 that goes in the middle. And oddly, it's phase 2 that lots of organizations don't pay much attention to. And that's why That's why this could be made fun of 20 plus years ago by the people in South Park, because it's not just people in software that deal with this problem. It's everybody. This thing seems to be invisible to all of us. Now, here's the biggest problem with this model. I'll make sure I'm sticking to my script. Actually, let's do this. Look, your organization survives and grows and thrives because of what your customers and users do. If they don't choose to do things differently, you can't succeed. And what I want to talk about is value, or the fact that this stuff is not guaranteed, or the most annoying part about this model is this stupid idea thing. Now, there are three big problems with ideas. Let's talk about those. The first big problem that you know about is there are always too many. There's no shortage of ideas. You talk to any customer user, they've got ideas. Any business stakeholder, they've got ideas. You've got competitors or other things out there. It just feels like there's a huge amount of pressure to build more things faster. And that makes Agile sound good. Agile focuses on building things faster. DevOps focuses on building things and releasing more things faster. But here's the biggest problem with this, is that most of these ideas suck or will not work out. Now, if I were to ask you, if you had an idea for a whole new product or capability, and somebody said, hey, you should leave your company and work for my tech startup, well, does anybody know the failure rate of tech startups, anecdotally? Yeah, everybody does, anecdotally. Yeah, about 90%. 90% is commonly considered a failure rate. There's an organization called the Startup Genome Report. Startup Genome Report has done research on this for getting close to 2 decades now. You can get startup failure rate comparisons between startups in the US and Asia Pacific and Europe and South America, North America, things like that. And yeah, generally actually, the quote I've got here is that within the 3 years, 92% of startups failed. Now, that quote talks about even the startups that succeed, only a small fraction of those actually have an equity event that where if you put money into the company, you'd actually make money back. So they just get to a point where they're sustaining themselves. And then that second quote under that, as many as 75% of venture-backed companies never return cash to investors. So look, if you're a venture capitalist, you know that 75% of the companies you put money into will not return anything. Just happily, the 25% that do, or even a fraction of those that do, return enough that it allows you to risk all that other money. Software, or things we put into products, are big bets. Now, one weird thing that happens is if you get a product that gets out there and is able to sustain a company, then people start believing all their feature ideas are going to be awesome from here on in. Now, there isn't as much data out there on this. I was just reading a Microsoft report yesterday. I should cite that, but I don't have that in my slide yet. Microsoft was saying that 2/3 of the features they put into products don't succeed, and they have to change or pull back. There is an analytics tool called Pendo. Anybody familiar with Pendo? Anybody use Pendo? There are a lot of tools that allow you to instrument your products so that you can measure if people are actually using those features. Now, Pendo is a cloud-based tool. By now, maybe you've read this quote, but based on an aggregation of anonymized product usage data, Pendo determined that 80% of software, 80% of the features in a software product are rarely or never used. So look, we put a lot of things into products that never get used. Now, let me give you the third thing here. We're here in Indianapolis. Are there any startup accelerators here in Indy? Has anybody ever visited a startup accelerator before? I see a couple hands. For those people that don't know, they are co-working spaces where lots of startups will work together in a cohort, and they, in exchange for some coaching and support, they exchange a little bit of equity in their organization, and they help them succeed. And the most interesting thing to me about startup accelerators is when you walk in those places, they're fairly high energy, and people seem super positive. Now, when I look around, I'm seeing that 90% of the people here are going to be looking for jobs this time next year. They are all working for failing startups, and they don't seem to be sad about that. They're not stupid. They know what the failure rate of startups are, and you can ask any one of them what the failure rate of startups is, and they say, well, it's 90%, and they will say, yeah, and they will look around at all the other companies in the room and say, their ideas suck. but not ours. This is called bias. And although we complain about this a lot, it's a blessing. Humans are blessed with this. When we sit down and we've got a fantastic idea, we honestly believe we understand these people and their problems. We honestly believe that when they see that idea, they're going to say, this is lovely, I want to try this. We honestly believe we can design and build it in some predictable amount of time. We honestly believe that lots of people will use it and keep using it and say good things, and enough people will to sustain our organization. That's it. This is tough, and this is the world we live in. If you thought building stuff fast was hard, or predicting how long things are going to take to be built is hard, try and predict the value you're going to get from things. That's even tougher. So one of the things we've realized is that we just can't, again, the faster you build things, the faster you build crap, the more crap you get, that our job is not to build more things faster. Our job is actually to build less. Our job is to minimize this output stuff at the same time as we maximize this outcome and impact stuff. Now, I'm not saying much here. All I'm saying is maximize return on your investment. But what it means is we have to get a lot better at figuring out what ideas are worth building or not. And we can't know or not easily know. So one of the ways we do is figure out what we've got to build in order to learn. And that's what the title of this talk was, and that's what I use Agile development for, and that's what we use good DevOps practice for. So look, I've got, through years and years of doing this and working with some other people, a good friend of mine, a guy named Jeff Gotthelf, and I worked together and have taught together, and we kind of broke it down to this simple set of questions. We ask people these 5 questions. Question number 1 is, do you really understand the problems you're solving? So look, I'm going to go through these 5 questions. If you really aren't sure about the problems you're solving, look, you ask, what do you need to learn to be confident about that problem? Maybe it's how people do things today, or what tools they use today, or how big a problem this is to them. And sometimes you say, look, the fastest way to learn that isn't by building anything at all. It's to talk to them. To interview, to observe. You could do things like talk to customer service. They could validate, yeah, people have a problem with that, and they could even connect you with customers to talk to. You could do things like look at reviews or social media to see what other customers are saying. Those are ways we validate that we've really got problems we're solving. Now I'm going to show and tell just a little bit here. One of the things I've done with teams for a very long time is to get them out and ask them to talk to their customers. The guy on the right works for Kodak, and yes, they are still in business. He's a product manager for a kiosk. They're in a CVS store where you bring in a USB stick or your phone or a camera, and you get a high quality picture out of that kiosk. Guy on the right is a product manager. Guy on the left is a user experience person. The guy behind the guy on the right is an engineer. You probably figured out the short white-haired person is not on their team. She's been trying to get a picture out for the last half hour, and these people are watching people work. They used to go through some weird formal process of recruiting people to come into the office to do interviews, and you got to think about who comes in during the day. It's usually students that need a little bit of extra money and want the gratuity. But look, if you're building a product that can, you know where people are using it, go to where they are. That's called an intercept interview. If you're building a product for internal use, people that use the product work for you. Go to where they are. That's easy. The guy at the computer is a marketing guy. The person to his right is an engineer. She's an engineer. The person to the left is a business analyst. They didn't ask him, where's the problem? They play a little game with him and say, look, assume you're going on vacation next week and you need to teach us how to do your job. This is called an apprenticeship style interview. He teaches them how to do the job. They see his weird workarounds, the weird way he does things. They realize he's got a lot of problems that he doesn't even know he has, but we can see. And this is where you build really deep understanding and empathy. Guy on the right is a product manager for a line of portable printers. The guy on the left is from China. He designs portable printers. The guy in the middle takes pictures of you and your family in front of the Gateway Monument in Mumbai for 30 rupees. He's a street photographer. And when the guy on the left goes back to China and he's got requirements for durability and portability and heat resistance, those things mean something different to him now that he's spent a day in the hot sun with street photographers. Now, I'm going to jump here. Every one of the pictures I've showed you has engineers in them because this isn't somebody else's responsibility. Ideally, this is a team's responsibility. To build anything requires people that understand things from a technical perspective and a business perspective and a user's perspective, and we put these people together. Now, I'm going to show you some more pictures of this guy in a little bit. His name is Sharif. He is the product manager at Atlassian that I've known for the very longest. I've known this guy 15 plus years. I met him when he was a product manager for Jira. He is now currently responsible for all of Atlassian's AI stuff, so a lot of product people report to him on that and is advising Atlassian how to do this stuff. But by now you've read this quote that I don't do customer interviews without having a developer in the room. If you're an engineer at Atlassian, it's common practice. You are expected to meet and understand your customers' problems. And they're not going to proceed with building anything until they are sure that they do. So look, if you can confidently say or answer that first question, are you sure you're really solving a problem? Go on to the next question. When they see your solution, will they want it? Now, one easy way to answer that question is to show and tell. Interview them, show them the solution, and see how they react. Now, you don't ask them if they want it. The way you detect if they want it is by shutting up and listening. It's the same way you detect if someone likes, you invite someone for dinner and you want to figure out if they liked what you served them. Don't ask them. They're going to politely say yes, but you wait for them to ask, see if they clean their plate, if they ask for seconds, if they make the yummy sound. Things like that, that will do this. But when we start to incorporate good engineering or DevOps practice, we get some other interesting ways of dealing with this. I'm going to let the guy who explained the concept, this guy is Steve Koffer. He's the founder of TripAdvisor. Years ago, he coined the term 404 test. Let me have him explain what that is.
Web-based, a consumer-facing web-based business, there's nothing like running a little test on the website itself to say what do your visitors really want? And the notion of doing a quick test solves umpteen meetings worth of powerful debate and logical arguments. So at TripAdvisor, we've for quite some time done these things called 404 tests. And HTTP 404 error, it's a link, it's broken, it gives you an error. And I'm a fan of, look, you want to test whether consumers want to sign up for a weekly newsletter on ski vacations. Hey, go put a link, before you build the darn thing, go put a link on your ski pages that says, sign up for our ski newsletter.
So it's a 404 test because you literally just redirect your 404s to this?
No, you put the link, you market it any which way you want on the site, the most compelling call to action, sign up, great ski newsletter. But before you actually spend the energy to design and build the product that you're actually going to deliver, in this case a newsletter, you put it on the site for an hour or a day and you see how many people click it. It goes nowhere. It says broken link to the user.
I see.
Your log file says how many people clicked on it.
Yeah.
And the marketing pushback I got when it was first introduced is, how can you do that to your customers? You're putting a broken link on your site deliberately. And I'm like, look, almost all the visitors' site, when they find a broken link, they're going to blame their internet connection, not me.
Yeah.
And what's the worst that can happen? 1,000 people or 5,000 people can hit that broken link, and you're pissed off as a marketeer because we've disappointed 1,000 people. I'm high-fiving it all over the place because with a 10-minute test, I found some great usability, some great user feedback that says they want this feature.
Or and you maybe avoided disappointing far more people, right?
Obviously, in the other direction, if nobody actually clicked on it, then all the debate about whether it's a great idea or not is out the window. We couldn't market it on our own site. If we can't do that, I'm not interested as a feature.
So they really did, in the early days of TripAdvisor, put broken links and count things in log files. So we talk about making lots of changes to product fast. Companies like Amazon, companies like Spotify are doing things like this. Now, they do these with softer landings these days. This is Sharif again. This is post-COVID. He's working in that's his home office. His hair has grown. The product, this is a conversation I had with him last year. Anybody use Atlassian's Atlas product? Anybody heard of Atlas yet? Okay, just a couple people. It's because you shouldn't let your manager look at Jira. Atlas synthesizes or summarizes things across multiple teams in Jira, things like that. And Sharif had just gotten Atlas out, and I was asking about the way that they do discovery work and do this stuff. And we asked about this, what's called these days a feature fake or a fake door. And he says, oh yeah, we released Atlas with a bunch of those in it. He opened up and navigated to this thing that says organizational chart and then clicked organizational chart. And what you got was something that said, there's no organizational chart. This is what it might do. And click this link to tell us what you'd like to see in an org chart. And when you do, you're going to get a Google form that asks you for information, and they will contact you for further information. And if nobody clicks on that link, then great. And there's a lot of those in Atlas, see if you can find them. And if lots of people click on them, that shows demand. They talk to a lot of people. They talk to them about what they're thinking of. And they do this commonly now with their cloud-based solutions. So look, once you're confident that people want that product, then you got to start saying, hey, can we build this thing predictably? Now, the answers to that are fairly clear. Let me write here the feature fake kind of thing. Well, predictably means you have to predict. This means you work with engineering. And to work with engineering, you probably have to work through the design a little bit more. And if engineering can't predict how long it's going to take, they may need to do some technical research or build a technical prototype. In Agile development, anybody use the term spike where they work? This is usually called a spike. It's time-boxed work to see if we can build this predictably and exactly how we go about doing that. Now, the fourth question here is, can people easily learn how to use it? Well, this is pretty straightforward. It is often an interview with a usability test. Let me show and tell what one of those looks like quickly, because what's weird is you usually don't need software for that. These people are with Hewlett-Packard, and the product they're working on is called StorageWorks. StorageWorks exists. It's used for, and has been around for a long time. It's used for managing rooms full of disk arrays in data centers. Person on the left is a user. She's using the product. Person on the right is a computer. That's his memory in front of him. What she's doing is mapping customers to logical data units and logical data units to physical hardware. It's a two-step mapping that exists in their product that everybody must use and everybody hates. It's hard to learn how to use. It's messy. It results in lots of mistakes, things like that. They're exploring new ways to do this, and using paper, they can explore several ideas in an afternoon. They're exploring a visual mapping way of doing this, so she's used her finger to map those things. She just clicked the save button, which was not yet activated. He activated it, and she thinks that's hilarious, that he planned on activating it, and I need her to stop laughing and actually click it. I want you to see something. And he's being persnickety. He's not going to do it until she actually clicks it. So she saves it. I just want to see its transparency film and engineers observing. They're wiping that stuff away so they can reset it. And this green quickly refreshes. There, that's it. This is what a usability test looks like. This is how we tell if people can easily learn how to use it. Now, let me ask you about that. Would you call that prototype high fidelity or low fidelity, or any opinions on that? I saw a few hand gestures in low, but I want to talk you out of that. When you think of prototype fidelity, I want you to think of at least three different axes here. The first one everybody sees is visual. High visual fidelity means it looks pixel perfect, it looks real, it looks like the product. Obviously that was not. It was low visual fidelity. Next one I want you to think about is the data that people are looking at. Are they seeing real data? Are they seeing fake customer 1, fake customer 2, and fake customer 3, or things like that? The data in that prototype was fairly real. I watched them hand transcribe it from a working instance minutes before. So it was fairly real. The last axis to look at is high functional fidelity. That means every button works. When you click it, it does what it's supposed to do. When you map something on the screen, you see the mapping. With paper, they can fake fairly high functional fidelity. They had as real as possible data and high functional fidelity, so I'd put that somewhere in the mid-fi range. If you're trying to figure out if people want the product, you might pump up the visual fidelity, but people aren't going to actually use it. Anybody ever bought something on Kickstarter before? That's a high, you're seeing somebody else use something, but you don't get to do that, and they get to measure how many people are interested in a product. That's what Kickstarter's for. Well, that and funding the building of the product. If you're building a technical prototype, well, no one's going to use it or see it, so it doesn't need to look good, but maybe the data matters, or maybe the functional fidelity matters. Now, this last question is the toughest one, and I want to point out here that all of these are ways that we are paying to learn, or what we are buying here is evidence. If you want to get evidence that we're solving a problem, talk to people. If they can see it, build a simple prototype, show them, give them a way to opt in or choose to use it. Do some technical research or prototyping here and spike it. Design enough of it that engineers can figure it out. Design enough of it that you can do usability testing. But if you want evidence that people actually use it and really get value, I hate to say it, but you are going to need to build it. But here's the trick. It is not to scale. I'm going to play a little bit of a short video here, and what I'm going to talk about is a practice we refer to as a release to learn. And a release to learn, I'm going to show a short video that is part of a Spotify engineering culture video, and I want you to pay close attention to who gets it. Who gets that release to learn, and also what's missing. What makes it not a release to earn, or a release that will generate return on investment or business impact? What's not there? Let's do this.
Our product development approach is based on lean startup principles and is summarized by the mantra, think it, build it, ship it, tweak it. The biggest risk is always building the wrong thing. So before deciding to build a new product or major feature, we try to inform ourselves with research. Do people actually want this? Does it solve a real problem for them? Then we define a narrative, kind of like a press release or elevator pitch, showing off the benefits. For example, radio you can save, or follow your favorite artist. We also define hypotheses. How will this feature impact user behavior and our core metrics? Will they share more music? Will they log in more often? And we build various prototypes and have people try them out to get a sense of what the feature might feel like and how people react. Once we feel confident this thing is worth building, we go ahead and build an MVP, minimum viable product. Just enough to fulfill the narrative, but far from feature complete. You might call it the minimum lovable product. The next stage of learning happens once we put something into production, so we want to get there as quickly as possible. We release the MVP to just a few % of all users, and use techniques like A/B testing to measure the impact and test our hypotheses. The squad monitors the data and continues tweaking and redeploying until they see the desired impact. Then they gradually roll out to the rest of the world, while taking the time needed to sort out practical stuff like operational issues and scaling. By the time the product or feature is fully rolled out, we already know it's a success, because if it isn't, we don't roll it out. Impact is always more important than velocity.
All right, I've known that guy for a long time. One little known secret is that I taught the very first product ownership class in Spotify when they were less than 200 people and just a Stockholm company. And when they use words like it's impact that matters more than velocity, this is where this kind of thinking and language comes from. Yes, that's all that matters. And if people don't use it and keep using it and fall in love with it, then it's not worth investing in. Also, you saw that horrible term MVP. If you want to know more about what I have to Google my name in MVP, you'll hear me ranting on that. But Spotify means by MVP is a release to learn. It's not a crappy first release. It's not barely there. It's just enough to fulfill the narrative, but far from feature complete. But it's just enough for people to fall in love with it. And I'm hoping you notice that who gets it is just a few percentage of their audience. Now, in B2C organizations, it's common to have good enough DevOps and release management practice to precisely choose who your product goes to. Talking with my friend Sharif at Atlassian, they will choose people in a specific specific geographic area, and I was talking with him about Jira. He said, look, if we were going to release a new way to do epics in Jira, we choose people in a small geographic area that use Jira every day and commonly use epics in Jira because they're the ones that are likely to see it and try that new feature and use it, so we can measure. So you've got to have good enough DevOps practice to control who gets it. For B2B organizations, what we do is recruit early adopters. Early adopters are, well, you, if you've ever bought anything from Kickstarter, because what you're buying is not something that's a proven product. You're buying something because you like the idea, you have the problem, you want to solve it, and the common name for these kinds of early adopters is CDP, short for Customer Development Partners. I hear terms like EAP, short for Early Access Partners also. But look, if you're B2C, you've got millions of customers, this is a few thousand. If you're B2B and you've got hundreds of thousands of customers, this is dozens or a few hundred. Now, I hope you were paying attention to what's missing. If it's just enough to fulfill the narrative, then functionality is missing. We may imagine we need these extra things in it. And I'm drawing squares here to indicate backlog items, because one of the ways you get yourself into trouble is by releasing to learn to a small number of people, and people say, that's working great, ship it to everybody, and you need to say, no, we still have these things left to go. And the other thing you don't worry about is scale and performance, because you're releasing to a small fraction of people. So you may pull back on things that allow it to scale. And in fact, the mantra for people who do this is nail it before you scale it. Now, a lot of people say, hey, we already do this. We release a beta release, but I can almost guarantee if you're releasing betas, you've done the scale it before you nail it approach. Where the beta release is the exact same one you're going to release to everybody else, but you're too afraid to. A release to learn is a fraction of the size. We hold back a lot of the scale and performance, and then he talked about operational support, and sometimes we call this go-to-market stuff. Help files, what ops will need to support it, other things will need to get it adopted by other customers, because we talk directly with our early adopters if it's internal or B2B. So look, there's a lot of functionality missing when we release to learn. Now, I've got just a little bit of time left, and I want to show one example and then kind of wrap this up. I'm sorry I didn't leave any time for questions here. But I want to talk about a company and a customer development partner. It's a company called Barn Tools and Bin Talk. I'm doing that because did you know that Indiana is the 5th largest pork producing state in the United States? 5th, you're 5th, sorry. Iowa's first, and then there's a few things ahead of you. But I hear that Chris, what is it? It's a pork. It's a pork tenderloin. And if I leave Indiana and I don't have a pork tenderloin sandwich, that's going to be bad. So anyway, pork's a big deal around here, so I want to talk about pork for a minute. In particular, I'm going to talk about this particular company. They're called LB Pork. LB Pork. In particular, LB Pork. That's it's the Lynn Becker farm, actually. I need to talk about this guy, and this guy is Lynn Becker. That's who I want to talk about. I'm talking about Lynn Becker because Lynn Becker he buys products from this company called Barn Tools. Barn Tools, gosh, a friend of mine said it's kind of like, the Ring doorbell system, except for your barn. It records coming and going and the humidity and air temperature and things like that. And if you're a pork farmer and you've got tons of barns, the people like this rely on this. Otherwise, the alternative is driving around to all of your barns to check on the pigs and things at night. And quote from Lynn here is, it's the only reason I can sleep at night is having data from my barns. Now, the other reason I'm talking about this is I'm talking about this guy. This is Matt. Matt is a product manager at Barn Tools, and it's his responsibility to maximize the value from the products he creates, and he knows they're often not right. And so they plan on releasing to learn, and it's important to have him to have guys like Lynn Becker and other people that are customer development partners to learn from. Now, I'm talking about this tool called Bin Talk, and of course, all of you know how hard it is to figure out how much feed is left in your feeding bin, right? Anyway, it is, and the traditional way it's done is to either hit it with a hammer or throw rocks at it and listen to the sound. That's how you tell how much food is left in there. But they've got this cool tool. Come on. Yeah, all right.
Are you tired of climbing feed bins and dealing with feed outages?
I know I am.
Well, let me introduce you to a smarter solution. Bin Talk is a wireless sensor that allows you to monitor feed bin levels right at your fingertips. With Bin Talk, you can say goodbye to climbing ladders and beating on your bins. Monitoring your feed bins with Bin Talk helps you save time, reduce feed outages, and improve your feed inventory management. And the best part is, installation is a breeze. Simply clip it to the top of your bin and start monitoring.
So that's it, pretty straightforward. It looks down and says, well, there's as much distance between the top and where the food is, and then it'll calculate how much is left. And you might think that the best way to go about this is to treat it just like a gas gauge, where you can see how full it is. And that's what it worked like. But my friend Matt knows I'm not. They know they never release to everybody. They always release to learn, and they iteratively iterate until it's awesome, and, well, they nail it before they scale it. But Lynn Becker, God, I was going to call him Sean. Anyway, Lynn said, look, you were off by 2 tons. You're looking down here, and it was off, and the feed has a cone value and things like that. And Lynn said, look, what's really going on here is I don't care how full the bin is. I have to order food. It's not like a gas station where I pull up and just say fill her up. I have to order food, and I have to say exactly how much food I'm going to order. And if I'm going to order 4 tons and they go to fill it and it's not, I have 2 tons extra, I got to do something with it or I got to pay them to haul it back. So I said, it's not what percentage full it is, it's how much feed is in there, how many tons are left in there, and how many tons you need to order. That's what they need to know. Like on your gas gauge, it doesn't say how many more gallons of gas you need, so it wasn't obvious to them, but they figured that out. And then Lynn said, great, that's good, but you are still way freaking off. I'm not sure why you're so far off. And as it turns out, those bins say they hold 5.3 tons, or that one says it holds 5.3 tons, but that's a big fat lie. Because food has different density, and if you ship something, well, one of the things they had to pay attention to is that since food has different density, or feed has different density, stuff with low density, the bin might only hold 4 tons. With high density, it might hold 6 tons. And so now they need to understand what food are you putting in there and what density is there, and that's finally right. It took multiple iterations for them to get this, and they can release to learn multiple times in a week. That's what good DevOps practice does, and they can interpret those things. So look, this is why we do Agile development. This is why we work in short cycles, not to deliver more crap faster, but to learn faster, and you need to get better at releasing to learn. Leverage Agile development DevOps to build and release more predictably. Actually measure the value. Did people use it? Were they more efficient, more effective? Understand the difference between releasing to learn and releasing to earn, and don't overbuild things. Understand this is a release to learn, and nail it before you scale it. That's the point here. Now I am 2 minutes and 30 seconds over. My gosh, I'm sorry about that. All right, thank you very much.